Okay. People will continue to join, but our time is short, so let's get started. First, my name is Bob Goldberg. I have the honor of serving as the CEO of the Jewish Federation of Omaha, and I'm very, very grateful that everybody has made time to be with us this afternoon. Like I said, our time is very short. We will leave time for questions at the end. We are really incredibly grateful that our friend, the Consul General, has made time exclusively for us to give us an update on this situation. So a very quick introduction to our friend Yinam Cohen, the Consul General of Israel to the Midwest. He has been a lifelong diplomat. He has been in his role for 2 years, give or take a little bit now. He's visited Omaha multiple times, including speaking at our community solidarity event the other night. Please, it is my great honor to welcome the Consul General Yinam Cohen to our group in Omaha. Mr. Consul General, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you for organizing that in such a short notice, and thank you everybody for joining. I want to really start by thanking all of you, the leadership of the Federation, and all of you joined the Solidarity event with Israel I think it was a week and a half ago on Tuesday or Wednesday. I know it was very impressive. I got the pictures and videos afterwards. Senator Ricketts was there with you, right? Which is very important. He's been also very vocal about Israel, which is great. So thank you for doing that. And I will later on say what I think you can continue to do. I want to start with a quick update about the situation in Israel and what we might be facing in the following days and weeks. So just to start with some numbers, very unfortunate numbers, we're talking now about more than 1,400 Israelis who have been killed on this horrible morning of the terror attack on Shabbat, October 7th. The vast majority of them civilians. The numbers will continue to go up. Unfortunately, there is still quite a big amount of bodies who haven't been identified yet. I don't want to be too graphic, but it has to do with what we know, with the brutality of the terrorists. So this is what we're talking about. Israel, I don't know, my feed on social media is just full of pictures. Whenever I open my Facebook, I just see a lot of images of pictures from funerals, entire families, kids, mothers, grandparents. It is really, my heart breaks 20 times every day. It is very, 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 very bad. And just to put that in context, because people start to question it sometimes, I'm saying it is the biggest slaughter of Jews since the Holocaust on one single morning. This is a context that we have to remember. This is what we're dealing with, and this is why we will have to do what we need to do to eradicate this threat. I want to also mention the hostages in the Gaza Strip. We're talking about more than 200 that we know of, but we know that there are at least a couple of dozens that we don't know of. They're either dead, unidentified, or hostage, not necessarily by Hamas, but by Islamic Jihad, or just other Gazan gangs. Because following Hamas and Islamic Jihad, this is, of course, a huge military failure, but also just, just mob, Gazan mob entered Israel, and some of them are responsible for the killing and the kidnapping. So this is a hard situation. We're talking about at least 30 babies and kids identified that we know that are kept hostages in Gaza. There is also a lot of women, elderly people. Some of them are American citizens. Some of them are, have other nationalities. This is why you see a lot of involvement also on this specific issue of the international community. Where are we now? In the past 2 weeks, 12 days, the IDF has been operating in Gaza, especially from the air, targeting, Hamas and Islamic Jihad targets. we have for more than a week now, Israel, the IDF has been calling to Gazan civilians to evacuate to the southern part of the Gaza Strip to save their lives, because right now with the airstrikes, and especially so when there's a ground operation, we really want to make a distinction between Hamas terrorists and supporters and civil population. We know for sure that Hamas has been exerting every effort to prevent them from doing so by putting roadblocks on the major road from, the coast, road on the Gaza Strip to prevent people from going down south. They have detonating at least one bridge to prevent their own people to go down south, and they have even confiscated keys to the cars of people to prevent them from going down. It is a crazy situation. I don't know when, I don't have any information, of course, about the operational plans, but there is apparently a major ground operation that is being prepared. Really, my hope is that they will go to the, as we call it, Gaza underground, just like Montreal, but in Gaza terms, they have a full system of underground city. It's a parallel city that Hamas has built for 17 years now. They are hiding there, of course, beneath the hospitals, the schools, and just residential buildings. They're probably holding some of the hostages there. It's going to be a very, very complicated operation, and we have to be ready for that. At the same time, we're also keeping track of what's going on in the north. If you've been following that, there's a lot of, actually, not a full-fledged war, but there's, every day there's casualties on the Israeli side. There's daily, hourly attacks from the Lebanese side, officially by Hamas in the south of Lebanon, but we know that nothing happens there without the full permission and vetting of Hezbollah. So this is a serious situation. Our major goal is to prevent the second front in the north, because entering into full-fledged war with Hezbollah means a whole different thing. We are sending messages. The Europeans are sending messages to Lebanon, to Hezbollah, to Iran. Don't dare to do that. President Biden said it very clearly many times. I hope that they're listening, and I hope that they're understanding the possible consequences, but I'm not sure they are. So it is a very delicate situation down there, up there too. The destruction in the south is horrible. Physical destruction of more than 30 communities, kibbutzim, moshavim, development towns, Sderot, Ofakim. We can easily deal, I think, with the physical destruction. What's going to be much harder is to rebuild the communities that have been destructed. In Be'eri and Kfar Aza, more than 100 people were murdered in each community. It's huge numbers. I don't know how communities will be able to rebuild, but they will. And we will need all your support when we enter this stage, but it is a bit premature now, but just know that it is a very long process, and we will need you all along this very long way. So be prepared, and thank you for everything that you do. I want to speak a little bit about the political support here in the United States, and also media and public, public opinion. And then I would really love to hear your insights, your comments, your questions. In terms of politics, I don't remember. I've been here for under 2 years, but I've been following the United States for many years, and you've been here, so you know that. I don't remember such unanimous support in Israel for such a long time. It's been almost 2 weeks now during a military operation, first from the president, and secondly also from the American Congress. We see a very exceptionally united American Congress. This is something that doesn't usually happen, as you know, especially recently. And just with the exception of really the usual suspects from the very far end of the progressive caucus, we see a lot of support and understanding for Israel needs, for Israel, not just, security needs, for Israel needs to really fight and eradicate Hamas. President Biden said it too. Of course, there's an expectation that what we, of course, try to do to respect, of course, human, civilians in the Gaza Strip and try to distinguish them from the terrorists. But there is really a very strong support. Also, by the way, on the state levels, all 50 governors in the United States have been very positively vocal about the need of Israel to defend itself, about their support for Israel. There has been some governors that also visited Israel, the governor of New York, governor of California. We are uh, talking with more governors from both sides, by the way, Republicans and Democrats, who might be going to Israel in the coming weeks to show solidarity. This is something that's very important. Don't underestimate that. When my Israeli friends got the pictures from Omaha and they passed it on to their friends, it had a huge impact of them, because what they see is that other people care, that they're not alone. And why for you it's very obvious, for them it's not. Israel is a country in a state of trauma right now, a national trauma. Really, everybody knows everybody in Israel who was somehow affected. There's hundreds of thousands of Israeli men, mostly men, who have been called for emergency reserve service in the IDF. There's missiles that are constantly being shot towards Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, the south. There's a lot of military activity that's going on in the north. And now more than ever, Israelis at this moment just need to know that you are there with them, that you care. So one suggestion, by the way, when we finish this call, just make 1 or 2 phone calls to friends or family members in Israel that you haven't talked to recently. Just tell them that you think of them. Tell them that you care. All right, tell them that you're there for them. It means a lot, really, really, for their mental health situation. I'm serious when I say that. So just do that. Really, it does make an impact. So there is a huge support on the American side. Of course, on the media, it's getting a bit more complicated, because the first week after the horrifying terror attack, we had an easy job. Just the images, the videos, the testimonies that went out did the job for us. In the past week, I'm seeing a shift towards covering more and more what's happening in Gaza. My job, as I see it, and our friend's job, is to remind the media the bigger picture, the context, what's going on, why it is going on, what happened just 10 days or 12 days ago, and what is the reasoning for what Israel is doing. I think that more or less we're not in a bad situation, not yet in the media, but it's getting more challenging. It will be more challenging in the coming weeks. This is why I'm thankful for your activity, for your continued activity, and it's very important in Omaha with the Nebraska press to understand, to explain, to make people more understand the bigger context. This is very important, and this is the continued work that all of us should be engaged in. I don't know about pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas protests in Omaha or Lincoln, but Chicago has seen a few of them, Detroit and other major cities here in the Midwest. It is uncomfortable. But again, my sense is that the strong majority of American politicians from both sides, elected officials, are still stand very strongly with Israel. I know that Nebraska, your governor is very supportive, and other elected officials. If you identify a specific challenge, please reach out to us and let us know. This is important. I think these are the major points that I wanted to share with you, and I would really appreciate any insights or comment or question or suggestion that you might have on this Friday before Shabbat.
Okay, so raise your hand if you have a question, and while I look, I will want to ask a question, Consul General. There's been a lot of reports of Iranian involvement. There have been reports of Iranian Revolutionary Guard in Gaza, certainly pulling the strings with Hezbollah, Hamas, Islamic Jihad. What can you tell us, if anything, about tangible evidence of Iran's involvement, and what, if anything, has been discussed about how to address that, the source of the terror?
This is a major issue. I don't have any information that I can share at this moment about a specific Iranian involvement in this specific attack. Specifically, we might have in the future. Right now, I don't have anything I can share. At the same time, it is very clear, and we have all the information in the world about the continuous Iranian support, inspiration, financing, and training on Iranian soil, by the way, training on Iranian soil of Hamas activists, of Islamic Jihad activists, of course, goes without saying, of Hezbollah activists. Hezbollah and Islamic Jihad, unlike Hamas, by the way, are really report directly to Iran. Hamas does not do that, but they are very close partners. They were trained on Iranian soil. They were financed by Iran. Iran has been, for years, been smuggling weapons, technology, know-how, ammunition to the Gaza Strip, to these organizations. So the fingerprints of Iran are really all over the Gaza Strip and the Middle East. Now, they are still very involved at the moment with giving instructions to Hezbollah. It's no wonder that the first thing the Iranian foreign minister did after the attack is going to Lebanon to coordinate positions with Hezbollah. So they're very much involved. I think that what the American administration and specifically the president have been doing is to, and other European leaders, by the way, including the French president, for example, who has, strong connections to Lebanon. They have been delivering very, very strong messages to Iran and to Lebanon and to Hezbollah. Don't do that. It's very dangerous. But, I'm not sure that their way of thinking is necessarily a very rational one. For them, for sure, the attack on Israel was a sign of weakness of Israel, and they want to take advantage of that. And this is something that is very dangerous. We remain very vigilant on that, but it's a dangerous situation. Oh, just yesterday, for example, it's not only there. It's also the Shiite militias in Syria, in Iraq, and in Yemen. Yesterday there was a report about the Houthis, who are the Shiite militias, Iranian-supported Shiite militias in Yemen, who shot rockets or drones towards Israel from Yemen. Imagine that, for the first time in the history. And the American, ships in the Red Sea were able to shoot these drones or missiles down. So this is really a global thing, and the fingerprints of Iran are really all over.
Yeah, thank you for that. All right, Sharon, go ahead.
Can you tell us what the conversations have been within the Abraham Accords groups and how the other Muslim brethren are looking at this conflict?
Yes. And I want to distinct Egypt, who's been playing an important role, but Egypt, we have with Egypt and Jordan, we specifically have relations with the governments, with the security establishments, less in the level of people to people. This is something that's very different with the Abraham Accords countries, that's Morocco, Bahrain, and the United Arab Emirates. I think the regimes there really understand the danger of Hamas, but not only Hamas, of Iran and Hezbollah, because it's not only a danger or threat to Israel, it is a direct threat to their, stability in their countries. But at the same time, they have major public opinion issue in their countries. In the name of Arab Brotherhood, many go and storm the streets in Arab, cities, protesting against Israel. So they're playing a delicate role. I think there is a big important understanding to the Israeli position. I listened very carefully to the Emirati ambassador in the United Nations, in the Security Council. She was very, very moderate, very balanced. She understands the need for Israel to fight Hamas. Yesterday, a dramatic, I don't have a different word, dramatic speech by one of the Saudi leaders, accusing Hamas of destabilizing the region, expressing public understanding to the need of Israel to fight Hamas from a Saudi leader, a country that we do not yet have, a public diplomatic relation with. So I think that it really depends, but if we are able to finish what we're doing now in terms of weeks, my hope is that right afterwards, we'll do two things. First, go back to, the big challenge of enhancing the Abraham Accords. In other words, bringing in Saudi Arabia. And I think that the interests of the Saudis, of Israel, and of the Americans have not changed. If at all, they are now stronger now than before. So I hope that we'll be able to go back to that. And secondly, I really hope that we'll be able to see the moderate Arab countries in our region taking leadership role in the Gaza Strip in the day after.
Thank you for that. We have a question through the Q&A from Terry asking, she sees a lot of anti-Israel people using inflammatory language describing the IDF's acts as genocide. What would be some healthy talking points to educate these people?
I'm not sure that we can always educate these people, unfortunately. We have to acknowledge that some of them are, would not be educated. I mean, either Muslims or far left, anti-Zionist, anti-Israeli, maybe anti-Semitic people. But at the same time, I think that it is super important that you continue to be and ask your kids and their friends to continue to be very, very active on social media. I think that it is very important to continue to tell the Israeli story, the story of the 1,400 casualties, the stories of the families that have been slain, the slaying of entire families, the story of the babies, the kids, the mothers, the Holocaust survivors who have been butchered, the story of the 200 people, including, as I said, 30 kids who are being held hostage by Hamas. People need to understand what we are facing, okay? Because the narrative, as I said, especially in the media, is going towards what's happening in Gaza. And people need to remember to understand the bigger picture, the context, okay? So this is, I think, what we are trying to do in social media and on the, traditional media, and I think that you should try to do that too.
Okay, thank you for that. So our partnership region is with the Western Galilee, Akko, Nahariya in the north, and we have friends all over the north that we're in regular contact with, and we know you talked a little bit about the northern border. Can you talk about how the IDF is positioning resources to both do what it needs to do in Gaza to go after Hamas while also defending the communities in the north against Hezbollah?
Yes, this is something that requires a lot of boots on the ground, a lot of men and women were there now. So in addition to the regular, army, we now have a few hundreds of thousands of people who have been called for emergency reserve service. So many families in Israel are not celebrating this Shabbat, with their fathers or mothers. There are deployed both on the border with Gaza and along the border with Lebanon. And I want to add one more front, that's the West Bank. The Palestinian Authority understands that it's their interest to maintain this front a calm one, okay, because Hamas will turn against them if it's not. So there's more coordination and cooperation there, but it might get very heated also there. So it's basically three fronts right now, and there's a lot of people involved in that, a lot of deployment, and yeah, this is the situation right now.
Thank you. We've had a couple questions that are touching on the issue of the relationship between Saudi Arabia and Iran. And I'm wondering, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, but nobody has a crystal ball. We realize that. But can you talk a little bit about how you see the relationship between Saudi Arabia and America and Israel versus Iran? How is that relationship impacted by this?
So, Iran has for many years has been the biggest rival of Saudi Arabia. Iran is the leader of the Shiite Muslim world, and Saudi Arabia is the leader of the Sunni Muslim world. There's a big rivalry that is political, strategic, and also religious. A few months ago, we saw the resumption of diplomatic relations between these two countries. By the way, that was brokered by China. I think more than anything, it was a Saudi call for attention by the United States. I think that Washington got the message, and this is why we saw before this terrorist attack, a lot of American and Saudi efforts to really put the Saudi-American relations back on track, and that might include also normalization with Israel. As I said, I think the interests remain strong, both in Washington, D.C., in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, and in Jerusalem. And I really hope that after the war, we'll be able to go back to these conversations, because we really want to keep Saudi Arabia on the side of the moderate Arab countries, of America, and of Israel. And I think they want to be there too. They have some things that they want to get in return. And this is something that is mainly between America and Saudi Arabia rather than Israel and Saudi Arabia.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Feel free to unmute yourself.
I think we have a time for maybe one more question before
Okay.
I would have to move on to another media interview that I have.
Sure. So I will ask it then. You talked about reaching out to our friends in Israel and being in solidarity and letting them know that we're thinking about them and caring about them. We're also pushing hard to raise dollars to support immediate and short-term needs in Israel. There's been a lot of conversation about trying to collect things for soldiers and other things, which I know is something that we've been instructed that is not what is needed right now. Can you talk to us, in addition to raising the dollars and reaching out to friends, what are other things that we can do here to feel like we're doing something to support our friends in Israel and our family in Israel? What is anything else that we could be doing?
Thank you. This is an important question. I would add to what you said two more things. First, show your support publicly. What you did in Omaha a week and a half ago, I know it's not easy to arrange every week. I'm aware of that, but just, and again, there might be security concerns. I don't want to go into that. But if you were able to show on the streets of Omaha or Lincoln your support for Israel, this is something that matters. It makes a difference. When the the General Assembly building in Lincoln is covered with blue and white colors, people in Israel see that, and it means a lot to them. I think that you should really think about how the support for Israel could be shown publicly, because it sends a strong message. First, to Israel, that's very important, but also to your politicians. Okay? And I'm asking you, just maybe once or twice a day, or 3 times if you can, go into your social media channels, post something about Israel, tell the story of the people who died, tell the story of the hostages. Okay? This is something that also creates an impact. We have to share our story, because too many people do not understand it and do not understand the context.
Mr. Consul General, thank you for your time. We are with you. We are hurting with you. We are praying with you. We are there supporting you and all the Israelis, and know that we are here, and call on us at any time. And thank you.
Thank you. We know that, and we appreciate it very much. Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat
and thank you so much for joining.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you, everybody.